Every time you unlock your phone with your face, badge into your office, or log into your email, 3 invisible checks are happening behind the scenes, and almost nobody can name all 3. Miss this idea, and everything else in cybersecurity will feel disconnected. Understand it, and every login screen, every error message, every security tool you touch from here on starts making sense. Welcome to Week 1, Module 1 of the Cybersecurity Master Course, Security Fundamentals. Today, we're breaking down AAA, Authentication, Authorization, and Accounting, the invisible skeleton underneath almost everything you're about to learn. By the end of this video, you'll walk away knowing 3 things cold. First, the exact, non-overlapping meaning of authentication, authorization, and accounting, and why mixing them up is the single most common mistake beginners make. Second, a real story and a simple system that will make these 3 terms almost impossible to forget. And third, exactly where these ideas show up in the real world, on login screens, in error codes you've probably seen 100 times without knowing what they meant, and inside named protocols you'll keep running into for the rest of your career. Let's get into it. Here's why we start with this, before touching a single tool or framework. Every cybersecurity course on Earth teaches AAA first, because it's the invisible skeleton underneath almost everything you'll study after this. Think about your own day for a second. Unlocking your phone, badging into a building, joining Wi-Fi, logging into a server, even a firewall quietly letting one connection through while blocking another. Every single one of those moments is AAA happening in real time, whether you notice it or not. Learn this pattern once, properly, and you will start spotting it in every module that follows. Let's lock in the core of it right now, in one breath. There are 3 terms, and each one answers exactly one question, and only that question. Authentication answers, who are you? In plain English, that means proving your identity. Authorization answers a completely different question. What are you allowed to do? That means checking your permissions. And accounting answers a third question. What did you actually do? That means keeping the record. Who are you? What can you do? What did you do? Honestly, if you remember nothing else from this entire video, remember those 3 questions. Everything else we're about to cover is just detail sitting on top of that one foundation. Let's make this real with a quick story. Sarah works in IT at a mid-size company, and we're going to follow her for the 60 seconds it takes her to walk from the front door to her desk on a Monday morning, because that one short walk contains all of AAA, start to finish. Step 1. Sarah reaches the turnstile at the entrance. She taps her employee badge and looks into a small camera for a face scan. Behind the scenes, the system checks, does this badge number match this face, and does that combination match someone in the employee database? It's a match. This is genuinely Sarah, not someone who simply found her badge on the sidewalk. The turnstile unlocks. That right there is authentication, verifying a claimed identity before anything else is allowed to happen. Step 2. Sarah walks to the elevator. Her badge opens the 4th floor, where her team sits, and it opens the ground floor gym. But it does not open the server room. It does not open the executive suite. And it definitely does not open the finance department's locked door, because nobody ever granted her badge access to those spaces. Notice what just happened. Authentication alone didn't open any of that. Permission is a completely separate decision, made in advance by an administrator. That's authorization, deciding what an already verified identity is allowed to access. Step 3, and this is the one beginners forget entirely. Every single tap of Sarah's badge, whether it succeeds or gets denied, is quietly written to a log. Her name, the door, the exact timestamp, granted or refused. She never even sees this happening. But here's why it matters. 6 months later, if equipment goes missing from the 2nd floor over a weekend, the security team pulls this exact log. And they can see, down to the second, everyone who did and did not badge into that floor during the incident window. That's accounting, the ongoing record of what happened, kept whether or not anyone ever needs it, until one day someone does. Now notice the order all of that happened in, because it never changes. Sarah could not have been authorized before she was authenticated. You cannot hand out permissions to an identity you haven't verified yet. And accounting isn't really a separate step at all. It's running continuously in the background the entire time, no matter the outcome. Authenticate first. Authorize second. Account for everything, always, throughout. That order holds true no matter what system you're looking at. A building, a website, a server, anything at all. Let's go deeper on authentication specifically. Formally, authentication is the process of proving that an identity, a person, a device, or even a piece of software, is genuinely who or what it claims to be, using something security professionals call a factor. There are 3 classic categories of evidence, and nearly every login method you'll ever encounter is built from one or more of them. Category 1. Something you know, a secret only you should know, like a password, a PIN, or a security question. Category 2. Something you have, an item only you should possess, like an authenticator app or a hardware key such as a YubiKey. Category 3. Something you are, a trait of your own body, like a fingerprint, a face scan, or an iris scan. There's actually a newer, less formal idea some modern systems add as an extra signal, things like your GPS location, or even your typing rhythm, sometimes called somewhere you are, or something you do. It's not officially one of the 3 traditional factors, but you'll see it used more and more. Now here's where this gets genuinely practical. Multi-Factor Authentication, or MFA. MFA means combining 2 or more different categories from that list, not 2 passwords, because that's still just one category, something you know used twice. The real security benefit only shows up when you force an attacker to defeat fundamentally different kinds of evidence. Here's a concrete example. Say your password leaks in a data breach. Without MFA, that's it, game over, the attacker logs straight in. But with MFA turned on, they still can't get in, because they don't have your phone generating that one-time code. That second, unrelated factor is exactly what stops a leaked password from turning into a full account takeover. It's why MFA is one of the highest impact security habits that exists, and yes, you'll be turning it on yourself, hands-on, in Module 5. Now let's go deeper on authorization. This only ever happens after authentication succeeds, and it answers a completely separate question. Now that we know who this is, what are they actually permitted to do? The governing idea here is called least privilege, and it's refreshingly simple. Grant every identity the minimum access it needs to do its job and nothing more. And in turn doesn't need admin rights to the finance database. A marketing laptop doesn't need write access to production servers. Least privilege is fundamentally an authorization idea. It limits what a verified identity can reach so that if one account ever gets compromised, the damage stays contained. And here's something worth remembering. Authorization is never one single global setting. It gets checked per resource every single time. Take that same authenticated Sarah from our story. She might be authorized to read her own HR file, not authorized to edit it, and definitely not authorized to view a coworker's salary. Same identity, 3 completely different outcomes, depending entirely on what she's trying to touch. Same story here. You'll build this out for real in Module 5, this time formalizing it into models like Role-Based Access Control, or RBAC, where you'll construct an actual permission matrix by hand. Let's finish with accounting, which is sometimes called auditing. It's the continuous process of recording what happens on a system. Who logged in, when, from where, what they accessed, what they changed, and when they left. And it happens whether or not anything ever goes wrong. Why does this matter so much? For big reasons. 1. Incident investigation. When something goes wrong, logs are often the only way to reconstruct what actually happened. 2. Compliance. Regulations like HIPAA, GDPR, and PCI DSS don't just require good security, they require proof of it, in the form of audit trails an outside auditor can inspect. 3. Non-repudiation, which is a fancy way of saying a properly logged action ties a specific identity to a specific action so tightly that they can't credibly deny doing it. And 4. Accountability and usage tracking. This is literally how cloud providers know how much compute, storage, or bandwidth your account used, partly so they can bill you correctly for it. So where do all these logs actually reside? Windows event logs, Linux's syslog, firewall and VPN connection logs. And at the organizational level, centralized platforms called SIEMs, tools like Splunk, Elastic, and Microsoft Sentinel, which pull logs from an entire company into one searchable place. These are the exact tools you'll be standing up yourself later in this course. Let's tie the whole model together with one simple 3-word anchor, in the exact order it always happens. Authentication gets you in. That's who are you. Authorization decides what you do. That's what can you do. And accounting records what you did. That's what did you do. Did. The order is fixed, and it matters. You cannot authorize an identity you haven't authenticated, and you cannot honestly account for an action without knowing who performed it. Really, accounting isn't a final third step so much as a process running continuously underneath the other two, starting with the very first attempt, even a failed login, and continuing long after the session ends. Here's where AAA stops being just a teaching idea and becomes literal, physical architecture. There are 2 real protocols you will keep encountering for the rest of your career, and both are literally called AAA servers. The first is Radius, short for Remote Authentication Dial-In User Service. The second is TACACS+, short for Terminal Access Controller Access Control System Plus. When you join corporate Wi-Fi or a network administrator logs into a switch, one of these protocols does all 3 jobs by design. It checks credentials against a central directory, that's authentication. It decides what access or commands that account gets, that's authorization, and it logs the entire session, that's accounting. You won't see these acronyms spelled out very often, but they're the real machinery quietly running behind everyday network security, VPN logins, switch administration, the exact territory you'll be configuring hands-on later in this course. Let's fix a mix-up that trips up even experienced people, while this concept is still fresh. When a website denies a request, it replies with a specific numeric status code. ERF1 is named unauthorized, which honestly is a misleading name. What it actually means is, I don't know who you are, log in first. That's an authentication failure. ERF403 is named forbidden, and it means, I know exactly who you are, and the answer is no. That's an authorization failure. So despite its name, 4.1 is really an authentication problem, not an authorization one, a naming quirk that's been baked into the web for decades. 4.03 is the true authorization failure. Your identity is already confirmed, you simply are not on the guest list for that particular resource. Before we test what's stuck, let's recap everything in a few short lines. 3 questions. Who are you? What can you do? What did you do? 3-word anchor. Fixed order. Authenticate first, authorize second, while accounting runs throughout, starting from the very first attempt. 2 real protocols to recognize, Radius and TACACS+. And the classic gotcha. Error 401 means authentication failed, error 403 means authorization failed. Now let's make sure this actually stuck, using something called active recall, genuinely one of the most effective ways to make new knowledge permanent. I'm going to ask you 7 quick questions. Try to answer each one in your head before I give you the answer, and feel free to pause the video if you want more time. Question 1. Put these in the order they actually happen: authorization, accounting, authentication. The answer: authentication, then authorization, then accounting. Question 2. A guard checks your ID at the door. Which is this? Authentication. Question 3. Your ID is confirmed, but the guard says the VIP lounge is off-limits to you. Which is this? Authorization. Question 4. Weeks later, management reviews a log of everyone who entered the VIP lounge that night. Which is this? Accounting. Question 5. You log in with a password plus a 6-digit code from an app. Name the 2 authentication factor categories being combined. Something you know, the password, plus something you have, the app generating the code. Question 6. A web page returns error 403. Did authentication or authorization fail? Authorization failed. 403 means your identity was already confirmed. You're simply not permitted. Question 7. Name one real-world protocol that performs all 3 A's for a network login. Either Radius or TACACS+. If you got most of those right without peeking, AAA has genuinely clicked for you. One last thing before we wrap up. AAA is not a one-time topic you finish and leave behind after week 1. It resurfaces constantly for the rest of this course. When we reach application security, broken authentication becomes its own named category, and you'll see exactly how login systems fail when they're built poorly. When we reach the Security Operations Center module, the accounting idea becomes fully real. You'll stand up an actual SIEM and write detection rules against genuine log data. Those same accounting records become evidence later on, when you work a real forensics case built entirely around reconstructing who did what and when. And in the compliance module, you'll see exactly which laws, GDPR, HIPAA, PCI DSS, legally require the audit trails that accounting produces. AAA is a small, three-word idea, but you won't go a single week for the rest of this course without leaning on it. That's Module 1 of Week 1, done. Solid work. I'll see you in the next one.